I've known Tim for many years, and it's just we've always kind of bumped into each other because I was always the guy that helped get like some real big names to events. So,
Right.
you know, no one knew who I was, but it's, you know, a certain celebrity or a certain scientist or a certain rock star would end up turning up at an entrepreneurial event because they had used me for those connections. And while I'm backstage, I'm hanging out with, you know, Ryan Holiday, Tucker Max, and Tim Ferriss and those kind of people. So I'd got to know I'd got to know Tim over the years. And then he contacted me out of the blue and said, hey, I'm doing this book. And to be honest with you, I never really paid attention to Tim. I knew he was an author. I knew nothing more than that. But I didn't know he was kind of a lifestyle hacker. So when he contacted me and said, hey, do it, I was like, hey, yeah, okay, then fine. And I didn't realize it was going to be the mammoth that it ended up being. Look, bottom line of it was, it's the same as everyone else's story. I grew up in a family of bricklayers, and I felt as though I didn't fit. And like all entrepreneurs, we kind of get aggravated, and we have to go out, and we have to dominate, and we have to find a way of making our own path. So I did that, and I had one goal in mind because I'm a very basic guy. I had one goal, and that was to hang around with rich people. Well, you can do two things. You can either be a lech and just hang around them, like you see a lot of pretty girls at a party, or you can be a value, and you can be an asset, and you can be a solution. So I tried to find a way of making sure that not only could I hang around with rich people, but I could be an assistance to that lifestyle. And funny enough, as I was a doorman of a nightclub, I knew where all the best parties were. And I could get them into clubs, and then I could get them into private parties. And before you knew it, I went from getting you into, you know, a really cool nightclub on a Saturday night to, you know, getting you to walk down the white carpet with Sir Elton John at his Oscar party. So it just grew, but the sole purpose never stopped being, I want to be able to talk to rich people. I want to understand what's different with them and how they tick. When I told my mum that I was a concierge, she said to me, oh, great, what hotel do you work for? So, you know, it was just that kind of thing. And of course, you know, we never did. I was working on the door, and these guys that I'd started to communicate with, and they were good looking lads, and they had money, and they seemed to have like good paying positions. I remember they walked into a bar once, and the hostess, you know, she came up to them with the bar tab at the end of the night. She put it down on the table, and she went, oh, thanks, fellas, have a good night. And they ignored her because they had a group of girls with her, with them, and they were, you know, busy, like midnight, and they weren't really paying attention to her. But the one thing I noticed was that the guy turned around because he elbowed the, I just happened to be there. He elbowed the tab that came in like one of those little leather wallets. And he suddenly realized that she had put it down there and they had all ignored her. And he jumped up and he came running up to her with the tab. Now, I had been, as a doorman, I was by the bar because there'd been an altercation a little bit earlier. And I saw him quite pacily coming up to her. And so it got my guard up. When anyone moves quickly in a nightclub, if you're the doorman, you have to kind of like suddenly be ready to find out what's going on. I had my eyes on him. And he came up and he tapped her, didn't grab her, tapped her. And he went, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for giving me this. And he was genuinely apologetic that he had not paid her any respect by when she put the bar tab down. Now, you know, you get ignored a lot in a club, especially the doorman. But he suddenly gave her the credit card and said, I'm so sorry, buddy. You've been wonderful. Thank you very much. So he not only looked the part with his buddies, he was gracious, he was professional, and here was the kicker. He didn't even check the bar tab. He had so much confidence that his credit card could handle any bill whatsoever. He just put it down. Now, for me as a doorman, I knew exactly to the cent how much was in my bank account and what I could spend in the local grocery store. But this guy didn't. And that was one of my turning points. Not only was he respectful, but he was confident his credit card wasn't going to get, you know, killed. He was the first guy I went to that I said, look, what are you trying to do? And he said, I'm trying to go to this party, but I can't get in. And I went to him and I made it happen. And I came back to him and I said, I've made it happen. It's $500. And I just pulled $500 out of my backside. And I said, yeah, I can get you in. It's $500, which is a lot of money. And this was in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is like me saying to you, yeah, I can get you into that party. It's $2,000. He didn't even flinch. And he went, oh, thank you so much. And they bought 4 tickets. And I suddenly realized that people don't pay you to actually do things. They pay you to save them the embarrassment of getting a no. People don't want to be declined. So I found out where I could fit as a solution. So I started getting people into events, into concerts, backstage, on stage, and it just grew. Only because I wanted to make some money, but the larger response was I wanted to have these guys to have a reason to have a coffee with me. And then just casually I'd go, so what is it you guys do? And they'd be like, oh, I'm a lawyer and I specialize in patent law. Oh, is that busy? I actually was using my connections as a job search. The funny thing was I got so many people in my Rolodex, so successful, and I was talking to them so often. In fact, those conversations should be a book, that I never ever asked them for a job, because without realizing it, I was designing arrogantly, but truthfully, I was actually initializing and invented the private concierge industry. There may have been other concierge firms out there, only because I can't be arrogant enough to think that I was the only one. But no one had ever heard of it. Every time I would go to anywhere, like, you know, the Grammys, the Kentucky Derby, Formula One, they've never heard of a private concierge. There were a couple of companies that started coming up, quintessentially Mint, 10, they started coming up. But we've been rocking and rolling since 94. So we were the absolute, you know, first up there. We were also a little bit different, because a lot of the concierge firms tried to be very subservient. And they were like, oh, good afternoon, sir. You know, how can I help you? And they were that kind of thing. We were like, hey, Jack, what do you need? Well, I need to get backstage. All right, send me 10 grand. I'll make it happen. We became like this cool kind of fixer that could get anything done. And people just started calling us a concierge. And I always defended that. Right from the word go, I was like, no, we're not a concierge firm. And they'd be like, well, what are you then? And we'd be like, and they'd be like, you go to a concierge when you need things. You're a concierge. And we'd be like, oh, okay then. So then they started doing these things like the world's most amazing concierge. And it would list all of these hotels. And then it would list us as the number one as a private concierge. So it was funny, by having that moniker of concierge, we got a lot of very early media from quite simply people not understanding what it was we did. 3 years ago, I wrote a book called Bluefish and the Art of Making Things Happen. And that sent me off on another path. So I've never tried to find a destination. You know, the classic, you know, life's a journey. I've always wanted to see where it goes. And the second you start going down the same road, boredom gets in. And for me, boredom is a cancer. So the good thing about the concierge firm was it gave me the chance to speak to rich people, you know, and I got bigger and bigger. You know, my first clients were millionaires. My next clients were like people that own things like countries. So I was now working with some incredibly powerful people. You know, there's countries I've gone to and I've landed that I haven't had to go through customs, because literally, you know, tinted out Mercedes have picked me up straight from the plane and just taken me straight to the mansion. I haven't even gone through you know, there's countries I've been to, but there's not even stamps on my passport, you know, that kind of stuff. And so it's just been really weird, the kind of stuff. It was never monotonous. And that was the thing. So when you get a bunch of people and they go, hey, I want to go to the fashion week. Well, that's exciting the first year, because you get to hang around models and backstage with designers and Donatella Versace and Tom Ford. And hey, that's cool. But the third time you've done it, come the fourth time, you're sending someone else because it's boring. So I've always tried to find something that challenges me. And that's been good, because this job does challenge you, or the concierge firm did challenge you. And I say did, because as I say, the book came out, and now what I'm doing is I'm actually getting another spike of challenge in taking entrepreneurs and getting them to do it. Because a lot of people are actually held back by their own inadequacies, their own fears, their own confirmation that they're inadequate. And so I openly say, if a bricklayer from London can be doing this with Sir Elton John, Elon Musk, and the Pope, you're already out of excuses. I would love to tell you yes. I would love to sit here and go, yes, you know, I realized it was time. No, I didn't. Yeah. I was at a party and a friend of mine, actually Tucker Max, Tucker said, you know, we should look at you getting a book. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, you know, because no one knew who I was. Any party I was at, I was like the funny looking guy that no one knew what he did. You know, the scary dude in the corner, and that was it. So no one knew what I actually did. So Tucker said, do a book. And I ended up, I agreed. I was in New York at the time, so there was no effort. So for anyone out there that's looking to write a book, I apologize at the simplicity I had. But I was in New York. He set me up with this fella who arranged 3 appointments. I went and had 3 appointments. They were horrible appointments. The people that I was talking to, they were not very conversational. They didn't know what I did. It was horrible. And I left New York thinking, I don't know why I did those interviews. And a week later, we got 2 offers. We picked one. And they offered me a real nice lump of cash. And I thought to myself, hey, this I've never done. And again, I like challenges. I like to do things that I've never done before. You know, I like jumping out of planes, fighting MMA, you know, climbing hills, doing whitewater rafting. I want to try things to find out what I like and what I don't like. So I thought I failed out of school. The chance for me to now be an author, oh, that's cool. And that was the depth of my thought process. It wasn't until I started having the ghostwriter work with me and we wrote 3 chapters, and then my wife read them and she said to me, this is horrible. And I said, what? It's all about you. It's all ego, ego, ego. And I said, no, I don't want that. And so we actually went up to New York, even though we'd already been paid, with the horrible idea we were going to have to give the money back. Because I said, I don't want a book on how brilliant I am. I know how brilliant I am. I want to be able to show you how you can do it and you can be brilliant. And so when I saw her, she went, no, we agree with you. We'll change the ghostwriter. We'll get someone else to come in. So they got a second person to come in and talk with me. And then we started to put the book together. And I found this obligation, which I hadn't noticed before. I found this obligation that in this book, I had to give someone permission to get out of the way of themselves. Without realizing it, it wasn't funny anymore. You know, writing a book isn't funny. You can, in that book, steer people certain directions. And I'd already been paid, but I thought to myself, okay, the liability of me having to sell, you know, a couple of 100,000 copies is gone because I already got prepaid. So what I want to do now is I want to write a book where people can digest it easily and then change their life. So it became a lot more stressful then to write the book. And I'll be honest with you, when the book was released, I thought to myself, I don't know if anyone's going to believe this. You know, a bricklayer from London suddenly doing this with Elton John. No one's going to believe that. And for the first couple of months, I was right. No one did. And then all of a sudden, it hockey sticked in book sales. And I started getting people contacting me on my Facebook page going, hey, how do we follow you? Do you do events? Do you do coaching? Do you do this? And I suddenly had people coming to me wanting some help. And so without realizing it, I'd basically kicked the beast and now I had to feed it. So it was, I hadn't planned it, but I've enjoyed the ride. My business before was always spending rich people's money to give them more interesting cocktail stories. That was basically it. They wanted to do something that they could then fly back to their mansion on a Saturday night and go, yes, I did this with Guns N' Roses. Yes, I was doing this with Sir Elton John. Yeah, that's what it came down to. It came down to the stories and the cocktail stories. But then you meet but that only impressed them and maybe a couple of people in that crowd. But then I found when I'm working with an entrepreneur, when you can actually work with them, you're not just impacting them, you're impacting their family, their workforce, their life. You know, I've had people say to me, my kids are now going to private school because of you. I've had people say to me, my kids are not going to school because of you. So you've now got a way of helping people, and you impact more by helping people get out of the preconceived limitations that 99.9% of people live with. Absolutely loads. Ryan Holiday, I feel terrible. I actually spoke with him yesterday. I think it was like 5 years ago, he gave me the book, maybe even longer than that. He gave me the book, Trust Me, and I pulled it out and it was just incredible. But so I contacted him to apologize for being so slow to the game. But I like reading a lot of books. Funny enough, I don't like reading, but the impact I get from a book is far superior than anything else. If I'm watching the exact same thing on a video and I read it in a book, it's way more impactful to me in a book. I don't know why, because as I say, I don't really like reading books. Tucker Max is great. I like watching him and working with him. I actually do work with him. Ryan Holiday, Jay Abraham writes some phenomenal stuff. And the thing I like about Jay is all his stuff is from the 80s and 90s, which is very antiquated to today. But the funny thing is, it so much applies to what we do today in how we actually need to focus more than ever on the ability to communicate and tell a story. You know, we got Twitter now where you go up there and go, I had a burrito for breakfast. And that's it. You know, who gives a shit? But, you know, people do that. And then they're upset at the end of the day because they don't get 30,000 likes. We're in a very strange situation. But COVID's done a fantastic job for making us want to get out and connect with people. So it's teaching us the real requirement to do so. So I like Jay Abraham's stuff. I like, as I say, Ryan Holiday, anything by Ryan's. What else have I gone through? Nair Ayal did a brilliant book called Hooked. Joe Sugarman, Triggers. Joe Polish has got a great book coming out that I've been able to see part of. Cameron Harold. So I really like reading a lot. Yeah, you think about it and you want to say something really deep and meaningful that's going to let them avoid the pain.
Right.
But I would probably, my answer was always, you know, stop drinking the cheap whiskey. As a young lad, I couldn't afford top shelf whiskey, so I would always drink, you know, the shitty, you know, bottom shelf whiskey.
Right. Anything
above that advice would be a waste of time, because I believe that my growth, and I've looked at it, I've had some very dark moments. I've had, you know, I've been broke, I've been sued, I've been laughed at, I've been ripped off. But every time I've had that, I've come out empowered. And so if you take those dark moments away from someone, you're doing them a disservice of showing them what they're capable of. And so I've always believed that, you know, relish the dark times, because those dark times are only going to allow the sun to shine harder and brighter for you. One of the last things we did was we had a couple that wanted to get married in the Vatican by the Pope. So there for 6 months making that. So yeah, that was one of my last Bluefish experiences. I haven't done much for Bluefish for probably about 2 years now, but that was one of my last things I did. I did that, and in the same 6 months I was stationed in it sounds like the military, but if you think your local DMV's got red tape, work with the Vatican. My God, the red tape in the Vatican is incredible. And so I was there for ages, and while I was over there, I also did a party in Venice, where I had Tony Braxton surprise the guests with Unbreak My Heart on a piano overlooking Venice. And I did a private dinner in Florence, where I closed down the Accademia, the Gallery and Museum, set up a table of 6 at the feet of Michelangelo's David. And then while the clients were actually eating their pasta in the most amazing surroundings, I had Andrea Bocelli come in and serenade them. Well, people look, you know, it's the classic thing. How do you eat an elephant? You know, inch by inch. I want to go and work with the Vatican. You know, well, surely the first thing you've got to do, and there's only two things, you've either got to first talk to someone that's Catholic, or two, speak to someone that's in Rome. You know, it's pointless me phoning up some Jewish fella in Chicago. It just makes no sense.
Right.
The people overcomplicate things. So the first thing I did when I got tasked with that is I thought to myself, and I always ride in on credibility. You know, if I want anything, I always try to find somebody that can introduce me to somebody where if that somebody doesn't know who I am, they certainly know who the other person is. And so I get to ride in on that credibility. Me and you are having this conversation because you know I know Tim Ferriss and he's quoted me. So I have credibility from Tim. But if someone else had come up to you and said, hey, do you want to meet this wacky, bald British guy that rides around on a motorcycle and just happens to work in the Vatican, you'd have probably gone, that sounds stupid, you know? So I have the credibility from Tim. So the first thing I did with the Vatican was I looked through my contact list and literally just filtered it by Italy and then found a bunch of people in Florence and Rome, and I started making phone calls. Because what's the point of me phoning someone in New Jersey to get the Vatican to open up for me? But people overcome. So I phoned up the first person in Florence. I went, hey, I've got this challenge of someone being married in the Vatican by the Pope. Do you have any connections with the Vatican? No, I don't. Second person. All right, have a good day, blah, blah. You know, second person. Do you know anyone? And it's second phone call I had, the guy said, I don't, but I have someone that does, and now he's based in Rome and he actually works with people with the Vatican. I went, can you make the introduction? He makes the introduction. The person he introduced me to worked with some people in there, but did not have the connection strength I needed. So he put me in touch with someone else. And so you piggyback, you literally leapfrog on other people's credibility until I got in. The wealthier and the more powerful the person is, the less they actually focus on the money. If you want to get Elton John to hang up on you, then just phone him up and go, hey, how much would it cost for you to come to my barbecue? And he'll hang up on you, okay? Because money, you're leading with money. So I learned very, very early on that people want to lead with passion. They want to lead with point. They want to lead with purpose. So if you can phone someone up and go, hey, I'm thrilled Tim introduced me to you, and I know you know a little bit of the kind of things that I do, but this is what I'd like to create. Just imagine if two people could do this here. Just look and feel if we could pull this off. You're getting them into the story. You're actually getting them into the passion. By the time the money comes around, they're already planning the roses. So, you know, just really focus on the actual story itself and get them to become an integral part of your story. The first one is go for stupid. Too many people go, oh, I'm going to make the impossible happen. That's kind of like giving yourself a limit straight off the bat. You know, never call anything impossible. Go for stupid. Go for what you dream and you lust for. Stop giving parameters. So go for the most ridiculous thing you can think of. And when you fail, you'd have achieved 80% of the way there. So that's the first thing. The second one is, what do you solve? That's the key today. What do you solve? If I need to sell you something, it comes down to my skill set. But if I've got a pack of headache tablets here and you've got a headache, do you care what I look like, or do you care what the packaging looks like? Focus on the solution that you have and then try to find the people that have that problem. So solve, don't sell. And then also the final one is you've got to become a creative disruptor. In a world of transaction, AI, which is getting very, very smart, will only ever provide a transaction. Siri, turn the heat up. Siri, do this. Alexa, do this. They are quoting you transactions. If you don't think we're in a transactional society, phone up Amazon and tell them you're thinking of changing your toilet bowl brand, and which one would they suggest? You're not going to have that conversation. There's no one you can contact. So if you're worried about keeping your job, You've got to be a creative disruptor, which means listen to the client and then focus on the hidden words, the meaning. What will really make that request something that they will talk about in the future, okay? Don't give a client what they ask for, give them what they desire and lust for.